Okay, guys, welcome to another World of Strange. This time we are talking about the Dogman. Oh, yeah. And you thought Bigfoot was a vicious bugger. You haven't seen anything yet. This Dogman is a ferocious beast. And we will be finding a few things about him as we go along. So let me introduce the group here of lovely people I have with me. In no particular order, we have Mr. John Piricello.
Hello.
We have Jake Wardle.
Hello.
We have Jay Aseng.
Hi there.
We have the beautiful Adele Jones.
Hi.
And we have Christoph Danik here. Yep, he's always on time. Right. So, Dogman, yes, a very interesting phenomenon that's popped up, and it's becoming more, apparently sightings are more increased than Bigfoot sightings, and that's saying something. So let's find out a bit more about this Dogman beast. So let me go over to Jake there, who's going to fill us in on a bit of the backstory behind the Dogman.
Okie doke. So, this is the Michigan Dogman. The Michigan Dogman is a cryptozoological creature allegedly first reported in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. The creature is described as a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed or amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7. Sightings have been reported in several locations throughout Michigan, primarily in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. In 1987, legend of the Michigan Dogman gained popularity when disc jockey Steve Cook at WTCM FM recorded a song about the creature and its reported sightings. History. This creature was unknown to most of the modern world until very late in the 20th century. It is said to have been stalking the area around the Mainstay River since the days when the Odawa tribes lived there. Authentic sources for sightings made prior to 1987, however, have never been documented beyond Steve Cook's song, discussed below. The first alleged encounter of the Michigan Dogman occurred in 1887 in Wexford County, when 2 lumberjacks saw a creature which they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. In 1937, in Paris, Michigan, Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs and said that one of the 5 walked on 2 legs. Reports of similar creatures also came from Allegan County in the 1950s, and in Manistee and Cross Village in 1967. Linda S. Godfrey, in her book The Beast of Bray Road, compares the Manistee sightings to a similar creature sighted in Wisconsin, known as the Beast of Bray Road. The Cook Song. In 1987, disc jockey Steve Cook at WTCM FM in Traverse City, Michigan, recorded a song titled The Legend, which he initially played as an April Fool's Day joke. He based the songs on myths and legends from around North America and had never heard of an actual Michigan Dogman at the time of the recording. I made it up completely from my own imagination as an April Fool's prank for the radio and stumbled my way to a legend that goes back all the way to Native American times, said Steve Cook of Skeptoid.com, Wag the Dogman. Cook maintained his skepticism about the possibility of a real Dogman. He had this to say about the matter. I'm tremendously skeptical because I've sort of seen the way folklore becomes built from the creation of this song to what it's turned into. But I do believe people who think they saw something really did see something. I also think the Dogman provides them with an avenue to explain what they couldn't explain for themselves. Cook recorded the song with a keyboard backing and credited it to Bob Farley. After he played the song, Cook received calls from listeners who said that they had encountered a similar creature. In the next weeks after Cook first played the song, it was the most requested song on the station. He also sold cassettes of the songs for $4 and donated the proceeds from the single to an animal shelter. Over the years, Cook has received more than 100 reports of the creature's existence. In March 2010, the creature was featured in an episode of Monster Quest. In January 2017, the creature was featured in the Season 2 episode Great Lakes Wolfman Dogman Wendigo of Monsters and Mysteries in America. Cook later added verses to the song in 1997 after hearing a report of an animal break-in by an unknown canine at a cabin in Luther, Michigan. He re-recorded it again in 2007 with a mandolin backing.
And that song, by the way, is up on YouTube. If you guys, listeners, want to have a listen to it, it's called "The Legend" and it's by Steve Cook. It's kind of like a country sounding, yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
So, do I understand it? Were there this song? The creation of this song is the. I mean, other than the Native American legend, which he claims he didn't know about. Is that right? Or no, he did know about it. But is the whole sort of sightings thing that all comes after the song?
Yeah, he said he had no prior knowledge when he made the song. He just made it for an April Fool's prank. And then it turns out there was, a whole thing about it. So to his surprise.
Yeah, he wasn't aware of it, of the history of it prior to doing the song. So, but the sightings were going on way before that.
So basically he just made that song for the fun of it, and it just opened up a whole thing. All of his listeners calling in and saying they'd spotted
People
it.
came forward then with their stories. Yes.
But he's never actually seen the Dogman himself, right?
Well, he said he remains skeptical, so yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think he'd seen it.
And what year was the song?
I think, was it 97, I think? No, hang on.
Because my story's 10 years before that, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was it 60s?
No, 19... where is it?
Yes, but some of the stories are ages a lot older than that,
Because he said he redid some of it in the 90s, right?
He rewrote, he added verses to it in 1997. I think, 1987, yeah. In 1987, disc jockey Steve Cook, yeah. So that's
the same year as my story then.
Yeah.
It's all so the explosion of it is sort of happening there. Frank, is that what you understand? The
Seems
sort of
it seems that from what Jake's saying is that the people maybe just came forward more once they heard that song, and it kind of
the Dogman sightings, according to the legends, it says in this article, the Dogman appears. The Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7. And it said the first one was reported in 1887 and then this again in 1987.
Right.
So it's
it's
7, lots of 7s.
7, that's 7.
One of those very common mathematical horror stories, of course, right? There's you've all, of course, heard of the prime number beast, right? That only comes in years. Forget it. It's going for something. The prime beast. He only arrives in years ending in prime numbers.
Yeah.
Prime number man.
Prime number man.
Prime number man. That's it.
Sounds like a math teacher.
Thank God it's only every 10 years.
And Mr. John Pericello here is going to read a story that's been I have for him here. So let's hear it, John.
All right. One weekend back around fall 1987, my two best friends and I were staying at my family's cabin, which is not far from the small town of Sparta, about 20 minutes north of Grand Rapids. My two friends left to have dinner while I stayed behind at the cabin. Following the dinner, the men headed back towards Sparta and the cabin. What happened next would shock and disturb them for years. It was dark, and they were on a rural road. Suddenly, both of them saw something standing by the side of the road. In the headlights of the car, it appeared to be a human-like figure covered in gray fur. And as they got closer and past the figure, both of them got a very good look at it. It was the size of a man, stood on two legs. It was covered head to toe in gray fur and had a wolf-like face. It even raised its hands and seemed to snarl at them as they drove by. They said it looked like a werewolf out of a Hollywood movie. My two friends didn't dare stop. They continued driving, and of course, they were peppering each other with questions. Did you see that too? Was that a dog? Was that someone dressed up in a costume? And so on. As they are having this animated conversation, they passed by the sign that says, "Welcome to Sparta," and drove through the small main street and continued on out of the town in the direction of my cabin. The conversation was about what had just happened, and their conversation about what had just happened continued when both of them looked up to see the same "Welcome to Sparta" sign again, followed by the same main street that they had just driven through only moments ago. They hadn't stopped or turned around. They had been traveling in the same direction on the same road, but somehow, without any noticeable interruption in their journey, they had somehow been sent backwards several miles. Until this point, it would be easy to dismiss this event as someone playing a joke. However, the time displacement characteristic is what sets this encounter apart. While such things are well documented in UFO and alien abduction stories, it is something we have not seen before in Dogman sighting reports. Andy continues. I remember when they finally showed up at the cabin, they arrived no later than I had expected them to, around 9 p.m. or so. And I remember how animated they were about their strange encounter. But I just assumed that they had seen a large dog or were telling me an embellished story in order to get a laugh. But 20 years later, both of them still insist this was no joke. I have no idea what to make of this story. Maybe it was just some teenagers in a werewolf costume playing pranks. And did my friends really experience lost time afterwards? Or did they just make some wrong turns on their drive and didn't notice because they were talking and distracted? I have no idea, but I would love to know if anyone else has seen similar things in the Sparta area. There we go.
Well,
that's a Dell where I come from.
That was a thrilling one.
Well, right there.
Look at all these beautiful people in front of me here. It's amazing.
Now, what is
everyone just logged on at the same time?
Yeah.
What was that? What's that show that's, I think it's maybe on Netflix or something, that has Matt Dillon? It's a great sort of
I can't remember.
Where you can't get out of the town. Anyway, that's what that reminded me of. You try to leave the town, and that happens all of a sudden.
Not that Under the Dome, was it? Is that what you're thinking of?
Well, no, but it's like that.
Yeah.
It was. Wasn't it an M. Night Shyamalan series or something?
I think so. Yes, that's right, Jay. It is M. Night. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
No. But that's what that reminded me of. Like, you would head out of town, and then all of a sudden you'd be heading back into town again.
Yeah.
It's like some video games are like that as well, when you try to leave a certain area and you end up just respawning back into the same area.
They've got
stuck in a loop.
It's like
you're a captive audience.
Yeah. So now that
maybe we're in a big video game.
Yeah, we are. This is just. I mean, it's virtual, but I mean, it could just all be. You could all be holograms.
Maybe Frank is controlling our minds.
Yeah.
Game within a game.
Got little joysticks, and the program makes us think like we have free will, but we don't. Yeah.
I do believe we got next. It's Mr. Christoph Zajac Denik. And
hello.
Yes, and this is one that ends with 7 as well. But this is quite a long time. You know, this is some time later. It's 2007 in a place called Bendon. So could you please take it away, Mr. Christoph?
Yeah, for sure. So Bendon, 2007. This sighting report is told secondhand by the brother-in-law of the witness. The witness is a prominent person in local government and wishes to remain anonymous. The Bendon Track. The situation started last Saturday night around midnight when he was coming home from a friend's house in Benzonia and taking the back way home to Traverse City. He stated that while traveling down Cinder Road, several miles outside of the town of Bendon, he observed a pair of eyes reflecting off his headlights ahead of him. Thinking that it was probably a deer along the side of the road, he began to slow down. As he got closer, however, he stated that the object was much larger and much darker than a deer. He said that by this time, he had slowed to around 30 miles per hour, and at that point, still several hundred feet from the creature, which still hadn't moved. As he approached further, he stated that the only way he could describe the creature was being similar to a very large, dark wolf. However, he observed that this thing wasn't on four legs, but it was upright, his back two legs standing near a road-killed deer. He estimated that the creature stood a little over 6 feet tall and had very dark fur. He stated that by now he was going slow enough to bring his truck to a stop in the road and observe the creature, which had not yet moved and was still staring at him. He told me that for a brief second he believed that the object was a giant stuffed animal put there as some kind of joke due to the fact that he had never seen anything like this in his life, and that he was able to drive up on it as close as he was without it having moved an inch. He told me, however, that before he could finish that thought, the creature then dropped to all four legs and sprinted across the road and disappeared into the woods on the other side of the roadway. He told me that he stayed frozen in his seat for a minute, wondering in the middle of the road of what the heck had just happened. I jokingly asked him if he had been drinking that night, and with a deadly serious face, he stated, "No. Whatever that was, it was for real." As perplexed as he was that night over what he had seen, he was deathly afraid to go wandering into the woods to investigate further. He said that in using a flashlight, he observed an animal's tracks leading into the woods on the opposite side of the road and was fortunate enough that night to have his digital camera with him. He showed me a photograph of the paw print, which he said appeared to be about 7 or 8 inches long. He had another picture of the same paw print where he placed a shotgun shell in the middle of it for scale. He told me that he was lucky that the side of the road was so soft because he wasn't going to go any farther than 2 or 3 steps away from the door of his truck to get a picture. I inquired if the animal had made any sounds before it disappeared, and he said that he did not hear it make any noise, and were it not for the picture, he would have thought that he'd been imagining the whole thing. I asked him if it could have been a bear, and he stated absolutely not. He bear hunts every year in the Upper Peninsula, so he obviously knows what bears look like up close. That's his story. Believe it if you like. If I didn't know him as well as I do and hadn't seen the pictures, I would have said that he was out of his mind. I've heard the song and know some of the stories, but always believed it was just for entertainment value. After this happened, though, I'm looking at all this under a whole new light. I don't know. Michigan. I'm from Michigan. People have called me the Dogman before. I mean, really? Yeah. I don't really believe them, but there's a lot of places where dogs/dog men can get really big in the Michigan wilderness. You know, you can't really follow everything that's happening in those woods.
Is it just Michigan that these Dogman sightings happen?
Apparently. I mean, they're really big lakes, so if they're thirsty dogs, like, they can drink a lot of lake water. You know? That water's delicious, too. Maybe that's, like, I'm not a dog, but I've tasted that water, and it's darn delicious.
Yeah, I wouldn't fancy drinking lake water there in Michigan. Really.
It's clean. It's good. You know,
it's good stuff there,
laps right up on your tongue. You know, not like I'm not a dog or anything. But
well, Michigan's kind of like where there's sort of like the legend of it was born, I think, but because it goes back to the 1880s, doesn't it? As you said earlier, Jake.
Wexford County, yeah.
But they are being seen all over America and Canada.
I think I heard you say it's Wisconsin too, right?
Yeah. So there are a few other places in the stories where they do pop up. So it's not just consigned to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not the Dogman, because I was just in Michigan. Like I'm.
I mean, you'd have to be well traveled if you were being spotted on all these different places. So.
One thing is
in Texas, all sorts.
There's the Dogman appears to be very similar to a werewolf. I mean, some of the descriptions are saying it looks like what they'd associate with a werewolf.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah.
So, what are the key differences then between the Dogman and the werewolf?
Well,
is it the time of day they appear, or?
Yeah, I mean they can be seen in daylight. They can be seen in daytime and nighttime. It's not. It's not
and also
full moon mythos or anything like that.
in the last story, was there a bit where it said that it doesn't make a noise when it runs, like it's a stealth runner? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I think they are supposed to be very, very stealthy and quick. Well, that's the same thing.
And even though they can stand on two legs, they don't run on two. They run on four.
They run on four, yeah. They can walk on two, yeah.
I've heard a story where there was a dogman that was like kind of leading a pack of regular dogs, and now this one he's just on his own. So apparently it can work either way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess kind of a loner. I guess lone wolf, so to speak.
I wonder if there's like, you know how dogs come from wolves. Do dogmen come from werewolves? Like, is there a family connection?
The bloodline or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
But I think the reason they separated, they resemble them a bit, is because of the human kind of torso part, but they've got like the dog or the wolf head. So that's the sort of connection to the werewolf, because it's supposed to be, half man, half beast, isn't it?
Is it the domesticated werewolf? The descendant of the domesticated werewolf.
Yeah, well, these things apparently aren't that domesticated.
Well, that's why I said descendant.
Yeah.
Like a wild dog.
Yeah, it's a wild one, right?
Domesticated
They haven't got many.
So I wonder if these domesticated
etiquette.
werewolves that went wild became dogmen.
And it's Miss Adele Jones and Mrs. Adele Jones, and she's going to read a story for us. So let's go over to Adele, please.
Yes, and this does not happen in Michigan. This happens in California. You'll have to excuse me. I'm getting over being sick.
Are you doing great?
Thanks. This is the true story of a canid creature my friend of mine and I believe we rediscovered. It started, I suppose, last winter. Being in a particularly dry area of Southern California, it was to my great surprise when a friend of mine and I discovered a sizable lake just over a small ridge on a well-traveled road in our area. We began exploration of the area, aided by Google Earth, which revealed a large number of lakes in the same vicinity. The lakes, as I was to later discover, were part of the valley's flood control system, and it held water for much of the year. During one of our explorations, we found something out of place. It was February, I believe, and after the rainy season, the grass had grown pretty tall on a ridge overlooking the first lake we had found. On this ridge, we found a trail of very large footprints. These prints were approaching 2 feet in length, with a very long stride, longer than that of my friend, who's 6'6". We followed these prints for a good quarter of a mile before they disappeared into the chaparral. From then on, we dubbed the creature Lake Ape and made many subsequent searches to no avail besides the discovery of several more lakes. He decided to drive down the new side road alone one night. What made him do it, I don't know. That road, it's terrifying at night. He was nearing the first of the terraced hills when a figure crossed the road in front of him. He described it as a tall, dark humanoid. Then it climbed a 5 to 6 foot berm on the side of the road, and it disappeared in the direction of the hill. So we returned to the area the next day, and I reenacted the scene. From this, he determined that the creature must have been much taller than even he was, to have looked taller than the berm from the distance that he saw it. I have to admit, I didn't believe him at first, and I thought he was just making it up. The following took place in the space of about 2 minutes. While looking up at the trees, I noticed something much closer to us. It was standing in the field on the other side of the berm. My thought process was actually quite comical. I first dismissed it as a bush. Then I kept looking up at the trees. I glanced at it again, and then I thought it was a man, a very tall man. Then I looked at it longer, and I realized it was covered in brown hair. And rather than the Sasquatch-like creature I would have expected, it had a dog-like head, most comparable to a German shepherd. I asked my friend, "Are you seeing this?" And he said, "You mean that figure over there?" There was a moment of silence in which the creature walked off to the left to an area where the berm was too high to see over and disappeared. I believe we both shouted, "Oh shit!" and sped off. But then on, Lake Ape became Dogman. Both of our accounts of this creature matched up. We all agreed that it was 7 to 8 feet tall, covered in brown fur. He had a wide chest and a muscular physique, body more akin to a man than Sasquatch is reported to be. He had a canine-like head, closely resembling a German shepherd or another wolf-like dog with large, pointed ears.
Good.
Very nicely read.
It was very well read, Adele.
Wow.
Considering
So-
you had less rehearsal time than my other guests.
I have a theory.
Yes.
Since it really hasn't been discussed, what breed of dog, I'd like to throw out there that maybe these are all dachshunds, like gigantic dachshunds, because they have such a long body that when they stand up, they just look like they're 6 or 7 feet tall. But maybe they're just cute, adorable heads, like dachshunds are. But they're just gigantic sausage dogs that are standing up on there.
You mean mutant sausage dogs?
Yeah, mutant sausage, delicious sausage dogs.
Yeah. You can make quite a lot of hot dogs out of it. Yeah, well, we won't go into that, no.
Anyway,
I mean,
maybe that
this
theory is totally off.
definitely
I don't
the
really
biggest
know.
one yet that we've heard of.
Well, I think that was great, Adele. Thank you for reading that out. You did it so eloquently.
And
Yeah,
they
that was
said
awesome.
they said this one's got like a German Shepherd head.
Oh, did it? Whoops.
Yeah.
Yes, it was just somebody bred this dog and let it out one night to see what would happen, and here we are. The half dachshund, and it's a German Shepherd head, and that person, the German Shepherd and dachshund, are still alive and breeding again.
Yeah, it's a crossbreed between
A mutant
the sausage dog and
mutant
the
dogs.
German Shepherd. God, that would be horrific. Yeah. I can see why
The poor creature's just crying for help. Right?
Yeah. It's just lonely in one's company, Yeah.
He wants a hug.
Yeah. I would
He's
fancy
hoping for a
that.
pet.
They make them bigger out in California, apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
they eat the coyotes.
That's right.
Yeah, they would. If they were that big, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they need to be able to take down packs of coyotes.
Yeah.
They don't survive out here.
But talking of German Shepherd heads, this will come into play, I believe, in Jay's story next. So, Jay, could you please tell us? This is a rather very creepy tale.
So this also happened in 1987. This is Danielle Stedman's encounter. Danielle was 14 and her boyfriend was 16. One night, she snuck out to meet him and go and pick up her friend Jill and Jill's boyfriend. It was late, about midnight. Danielle's boyfriend had a 69 Camaro and parked down the lane to Jill's boyfriend's house. He told the girls to wait in the car as he went to collect Jill's boyfriend. After a couple of minutes, Danielle noticed a terrible smell, like wet dog and blood. She asked Jill if she could smell it too. Jill said yes. Then they felt a slight rocking motion of the car. At first they tried to ignore it. As they'd both been talking a lot, their breath had fogged up the windows of the vehicle. Then another rocking of the car, and then another. They called out to their boyfriends, thinking they were playing tricks on them. No answer. More rocking occurred, followed by a low growl. They now became very uneasy. This was followed by the sound of nails dragging along the driver's side of the car. Danielle managed a quick glimpse through the window, saw a large canine-like snout, and then it stood up, the car shaking more violently now. The girls became frantic. When the creature had stood up, she could clearly see that this thing was very large, as she could only see below its waist while it was upright. She saw it had large hands with claws. Then it dawned on Danielle that the driver's side door was unlocked, and she bolted over and locked it. She tried to calm Jill down, who was hysterical by now, and said they have to keep low and keep quiet. Then realizing that her door was also unlocked, she tried to click the lock quietly, but it alerted whatever was outside. And the creature raced around to her side of the car and began to try to open the door, struggling with the lock. This ordeal probably lasted a minute or so, but it felt like an eternity to them. Danielle summoned up the courage to peer up at the windscreen, and then she saw it, a large, dog-like monster with yellow eyes, a German Shepherd head, and covered in dark fur. She thought she was face-to-face with a werewolf. Then she had a chilling thought. Their boyfriends were still out there. What if they came face-to-face with this thing? The creature then bared its teeth and ran off into the tree line. Minutes later, the boyfriends returned, seeing the two distraught girls. They asked what the hell happened. Then they all heard a howl in the distance. Danielle told her boyfriend, "Get the hell out of here now." He drove her home. The next morning, upon inspection of her boyfriend's car, the dust had settled on the vehicle from the previous day, and they both saw large handprints all over the car and its roof, plus along the driver's side, long claw-like scratches. Following the incident, Danielle did not talk about her encounter to anyone for years after, and her friend Jill never uttered a word about that night ever again.
Well, now that was that's like the stuff of horror films, really, isn't it? I mean, that
really definitely.
Oh man, that's crazy.
That's that's pretty legit. What I think is interesting about that story, just a little thing, several things interesting, but like the boyfriends are never named. I don't know why that is, but it's just Jill's boyfriend and Danielle's boyfriend. But it got me thinking. Yeah, I don't know if like they wanted their names left out of this for some reason, but if they were pulling a prank, then wow. I mean, my hat's off to them, because that's pretty.
I mean, that would. I mean,
if like hot really to do that to your girlfriends. That's like
thinking, if that was a prank,
stuff right there.
Pull on anyone.
And
put the fear of God in them. You know,
the smell as well. Was it wet dog and blood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
I hate the smell of wet dog. Like, I'm a dog lover. I love the smell of dogs, but when they've been out in the rain, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's very strong, isn't it?
Blood as well, like, oh.
Yeah.
Not a pleasant smell.
But that's one creepy tale, I must admit.
Mm.
What's your thoughts on that, Adele? That thing chills down your spine.
Oh, yes. No, I thought the same. You know, it seemed like it was straight out of a horror flick. So, yes. But I loved the reading. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, yeah, you're welcome. It was great hearing it as well.
All of them were so much fun, you know, and it's fun to sit and put all these things together. Thanks for doing that work, Frank.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. I tell you, I'm glad we got this done.
You too,
I was having panic attacks.
Yeah,
it's great fun.
11th hour on it. Trying to get it all organised.
It all came together in the end.
Yeah,
and then you all popped up at once. That was amazing.
That's right. It wouldn't be production if you don't have last minute curveballs thrown at you all the time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's been really cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Adele. Thank you for sticking around. So in the absence of the other guests, I just thank John Piricello, Christoph Zajac-Denik, Jake Wardle, and Jay Arsang. But I hope you will come and see us again and join us for the next show where we are talking about UFOs. Oh, yeah. Which is a fascinating subject, and we've got some great stories, infamous and famous stories to discuss there. So thanks a lot, Adele. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you all soon on World of Strange. Until then, take care and sleep tight.
Take care.